we're gonna have a conversation about Endfield because there's a discourse happening on Twitter. People are talking about the idea of whether or not you're allowed to criticize Endfield. And I'm gonna give you guys some context. It does involve one of our beloved AK content creators, and it kind of started out from this reply that comes over here. Okay, I'm gonna read this reply first. Arknights fans wants Endfield to do world building, character growth of the entire cast, visual novel storytelling, a babble type event for Endmin, all in the span of 2 patches. We are at version 1.2. It's getting annoying. There's a good amount of fair criticism, but some are just delusional. Super pretty much angrily replied, "You're only allowed to criticize Enfield 2 years from now in version 2.4 when the game is finally good." And he has a very strong opinion that this game is a potential game. And I'm siding on his opinion that this game has a very, potential game type of fight, right? As he kind of puts on the very bottom, always they are working on it, it'll be done later, but never it is good now. I do see that there's a lot of people replying back and forth and then being very open about why they don't like Enfield, why they like Enfield, and all that sort of thing. And I kind of want to put my view towards this as well, in terms of like, what do I feel of Enfield at the moment, and how do I feel we should be discussing about Enfield, okay? So, I think with the fact that we've all played through 1.0, 1.1, 1.2, well, I say that, but some of you didn't play 1.1 and 1.2 because you guys quit during 1.0. And for reasons that we have discussed before in other videos, right? 1.1, for most people, if not everyone who's played it, will say that 1.1 was a better experience than 1.0. And then 1.2 was actually also a better experience than what happened in 1.1. So it is a good thing that the story feel, the gameplay and whatnot, the world exploration is kind of like going upwards, making people feel a little bit better about the game. But if you have played this game all the way to 1.2, okay, whatever was your initial opinion of 1.0, some of you didn't like it, some of you accepted it, but the fact that we all think that it's better, you kind of need to sit in the shoes of the people who have quit the game in a sense, because to them, 1.0 just was not a good experience, right? A lot of people talk about how AK fans wants world building for Enfield to be exactly like how AK kind of paints of it. And I do agree with what the first comments kind of stated, that we are only 2 patches in, and we can never try to get to that extent of AK, right? AK world building only truly took off after years of many story. You have the prior stories as the baseline, and then afterwards, all the later stories helps to build upon whatever that you see before. But that does not mean that AK doesn't have isolated story experiences. A lot of people say AK world building is great, right? But the thing is that when I take a look at AK's chapter 0 to chapter 5, and I've often said this, I don't think the starting chapters of AK was amazing as well. Like, if it's not for me reading other stories of Arknights, I wouldn't have known that AK writing can be pretty good. But the impression that I got from the first few main stories that AK has had made me feel like maybe I wouldn't be all that interested to, read more about AK story. And thankfully, I took the dip to see what the other side stories can offer. I think this same phenomenon is happening in Endfield as well, that the starting stories do not do a service to the game. People were so hyped to see that Endfield is delivering on the 3D medium of storytelling, but yet the way they do it doesn't feel all that great, doesn't feel all that nice to sit through. On that part, right, I think we need to understand that we don't have to think about, oh, we're gonna get like a lone trail, a babble type of thing in Endfield. Like, that's not realistic, I agree. But let's just talk about the experience that we're set through in the front. And the fact that some of the characters just don't feel very flesh, there's not very good characterization, they feel very empty, they feel very shell-like, I think for the sake of Supa, he's commented on the people like Ardasher and Arcane. The terrible thing that I'm seeing for Enfield is it's repeating the same mistake that was done in the base game by the same company. That is, the starting experience of Enfield don't feel that awesome. And it's not good because people's first impressions are very important when they play the game. They gotta feel good, they gotta feel like this is a game that they wanna log in to look forward to what happens in later patches. But we can clearly see it's not really happening. Okay, I was just observing this and I hit to the official YouTube channel that Enfield has. I don't think we need to be always so sensitive about view count and things like that. But I do think when the disparity is like really big and obvious, it's kind of a concern. When Enfield first started and it launched, of course I do think that they maybe like advertised the video and whatnot. It had 1.1 million view when the game was launched. And then when you look at the recent event that had Fang Yi, it went to 331k, which is like, that's a pretty big drop off in terms of like the people who were once excited, interested in the game, and then you have a whole half, more than half, in fact, of the people who watch the start no longer watching into the next one. And I really do think that that is a conversation that we need to have. People say that we cannot criticize the game, but I think criticisms needs to be done and people need to understand how to criticize in a way that is actually fruitful. So one of the things that I don't entirely agree with is when it comes to people having subjective opinions of the characters that are within the game. Okay, you've got big creators telling you that they don't enjoy the personality of Chen, right? You also have people who have expressed that they don't like the personality of Arcane. And I think all of those things are kind of like you just saying that you don't like this person. And I can also have characters that I don't like. I have characters that I don't like their personality in AK and Endfield as well. But I've never thought that not liking someone's personality has to be the reason that you end up saying that this is a bad writing and whatnot. Because these personalities can exist in real life, right? When people say that they don't like Chen, Chen is a very bubbly character, is a high energy, positive person. But that's not unrealistic per se. You can have hyper friends that are just like this and always out there to follow you through. You have Arcane where, well, I have to kind of arrow him out, but Supa has openly mentioned how she doesn't like Arcane, and he stated how she's kind of like a blank shell. There's nothing much going on with her. She's kind of like this sort of yes man to you who always follow your orders, and then in the end, they all of a sudden just make her like off herself, or more so take her together with Ardisha, right? I don't entirely agree that she doesn't have a good dynamic with the characters because at the end of the day, she is painted as a military personnel, and I think that is pretty realistic in itself. I think there's a difference between characterizing someone that feels like something that you would see pretty normally versus someone that, well, you see pretty normally, but if you don't like this person, therefore you end up not liking the story. I think there's a little bit of a difference with that kind of take. So I think seeing the quality of writing that they have in the game is something that we can be conversing about. It doesn't need extreme world building and whatnot. I agree with the stance that the initial comment kind of put forth that you cannot have the insane level of lone trail and babble that we see in Arknights, where it spans from so many initial stories that we've had in the game to then deliver on like a big banger wrap up. Let's bring in all these kind of theories and ideas you've seen in other stories into one, right? You cannot achieve that in the span of just 3 months of the game. However, I need to point out that Arknights stories isn't always about putting everything into a giant web and linking into one story. AK has delivered on a lot of stand-alone stories where without you reading the main chapter at all, you can actually enjoy them in person. No need to know about like Oripathy or Reginium, what kind of races they are. You can just read them on their own. And some of these stories are absolutely amazing. The things that I want to point out on are things like Twilight of Wolomonde. I think that's one of my favorite stories in that game. You have Exodus the Pale Sea, which I think is amazing as well. Echodai, the event that features Trogodia, also amazing. And people say, world building, but those stories need no world building. You just read them on your own, and they are so well written. So, when we compare to the state of like Enfield, I do think that the part we need to criticize on is not the fact that, oh, I don't get the same vibe of AK and whatnot. Like, yeah, that's gonna take time, but when you just look at the stand-alone things that you've read thus far, not just in the main story of Enfield that they've been delivering, but also the side quests that you've been playing, right? Some of the side quests that Enfield has is absolutely brain-damaging, okay? I agree with the sort of complaints that people has made of 1.1, where they were talking about how we had the cleaning event. I agree. It's just fun. I don't know. I don't really find joy in that. Like there were some stages that just went like, oh, okay, this is kind of interesting. But honestly speaking, did I have to play that? No, not very helpful of an event. All the food quests when you submit food is very plain. These are the kind of things that I see in the other games, and it's the reason why I don't like the other games, because I want to play something that feels meaningful for me to do. Well, of course, those are just more so the filler events. But if we talk about side quests, where there are extra stories, those that are voiced, right? There are definitely some side quests that makes you go like, oh, why did I really have to sit through this? Some of them are pretty interesting. With the likes of patch 1.0, we had the whole Granny Jenny. I cannot remember her entire name, right? I think that was a great side quest that we've seen in itself. In the case of the current few events, you also got to see the interactions with the civilians themselves. Some of the Stockades quests were also pretty fun. Like, there's some good stuff that they've written, but not everything is great. And as a result of that, I do think that the not so good stuff, unfortunately, will quell down people's opinions of these patches. So the thing is that it's not like people aren't agreeing with each other on this. That for one, I think we need to criticize appropriately as to what we don't think is working out on a standalone basis. The whole thing about wanting Enfield to match AK, it might never happen, but I do think it's fair for us to wish for that. Just that, be realistic, it's not going to happen immediately. It might take time for that to occur. Until that time, can the build up for Enfield feel like a good experience? That is, I think, pretty important, okay? It might sound like I haven't been too satisfied with how 1.1 and 1.2 is. I've not made like a patch review for these two versions yet. I'm gonna do like a combined review pretty soon before patch 1.3 appears. But I do, for now, can tell you guys that I think those were pretty well done. For a large part. There are some things that I don't think they did very good. Until then, however, the way I see it is I hope they can be consistently improving themselves with the whole story writing experience. Because people are telling other players to be patient with Enfield. It will get good. It will get better. But the thing is, patience have a limit for various players. Some of you have insane patience. You're willing to die with Hyperglyph to see the end of it. Other people don't have the same patience. People got mad when I made the video explaining why some people feel that Enfield characters can feel soulless. I don't think they necessarily are. I just used that video to explain it and people got really pissed with me to just make a conversation about that. And the thing I need to reply to these people, because I get a very common reply, is you cannot complain now. The game just started. Guys, who gives a fuck? People are quitting the game. We need to reason why these people are quitting the game. And some of you will be like, oh, doesn't matter if they quit the game. It's my game, you know. I'm still here. I'm still ready to see it. If you guys have that kind of opinion, you really don't give a shit about how the company is doing, because it is important for them to be able to know how to retain their players. So whatsoever there is, people's patience, as I said, are of varying levels. So they really need to work as fast as possible to ensure that players will finally see that, oh, this is why I joined this game. This is why I have been looking so forward to the said quality of writing that people kept hyping about when Hyperglyph makes this 3D title. So that, to me, is pretty important for us to understand. So I hope that I kind of gave this sort of stance that explains to people how I feel towards this game. That is, I do think that they're on the right track. And when it comes to criticizing on things, let's talk more about the current stuff. Look at it on the face value. For the things that we have to hope, it's not like all of us don't have hope. We all are hoping for bigger things and better things. But yeah, just wait and see, I would say. But while we are hoping towards that, let's also help to say things that can push the game into a better direction. Not a direction that we ourselves only want. There are a lot of reviewers out there, and even a certain reviewer that we've not seen for quite a while now, that expresses opinions that is only to create a game that only they themselves want. I do think that there is an importance in trying to figure out a game that a larger proportion of players would actually enjoy. And there can be middle grounds of things that not only a lot of people can enjoy, but even selective people can enjoy, right? The whole thing where I tell people about having replayable game modes, having difficulty in the game, as long as you make it not mandatory for every player to play, and for players to customize it to the extent that they want, those are going to be very healthy game states. That's why AK does so well as a game. Enfield doesn't even have these things existing in the game right now, and it so severely needs it in order to help the game to go on. One of you made a comment just now when I was filming this video, and I thought it was just an amazing comment. I'm so sorry to steal on your comment. Dios, you're the one who said it, but I credit you while naming you. That is, the way that it feels like to some people is people are asking for Enfield to deliver on main courses level of stories, like beautiful 5-course dinner style that we can all enjoy. But the idea is that Enfield is only still at the appetizer, with the first 3 patches we have in the game now going to the 3rd patch of the game. But I personally also feel that even if we're in the appetizer of this game, I don't think the appetizer is tasting all that good to a lot of people. And that is something that we need to address. That is, okay, whatever, appetizer is done now. If the people have left because it was a bad menu, that's on the company. But hey, for the people who stayed, let's hope that the next few main dishes don't be, as lackluster as the front. Upwards we go, and fast, because you hope that people can stay until the dessert actually ends off, right? Hopefully players can sit through the entirety of this Uling arc, feel that it's a really, really good end towards it, and be able to be excited for the next 5-course meal when we go to the next region of this game. So that's the thing that I think Enfield really needs to work on. In any case, that's my view. Can you criticize this game? Yes. Know how to criticize fairly. I think that's just what's very important. That's all I'm going to say. And look forward to patch 1.3 or my review of patch 1.1 and 1.2. I will make that very soon. See you. Bye.